every side. In the darkness is the light. Out of the shadows of my life. In the darkness is the light.
Hello, welcome once again to the So Weird podcast. I'm Zach.
I'm Kathy.
I'm Emily.
And I'm Kat.
We're very happy to be back recording after our little holiday break. Tonight we are talking about Season 2, Episode 21, Production Episode 221, which is Roswell. General thoughts on this one?
Good alien episodes.
Well, I guess there were alien episodes in Season 3, but they weren't connected to the alien myth arc, were they?
And there's one more left in this season, but it's confusing, and we'll get to that later.
Yeah.
Is there? Oh, yeah, I guess there is.
A little bit in Transplant.
Right. Yeah.
I guess that counts.
Well, you know, it seemed inevitable to me that So Weird would do an episode about Roswell, because I don't know if you guys remember, but around the turn of the millennium, there was a lot of hot speculation about the Roswell incident in pop culture. I don't know if it was an anniversary or if it was just because of a general interest in alien conspiracy stuff at the time. X-Files was really popular at the time still. The movie Men in Black had come out a few years before. That was popular. So there was just a...
Xenon Girl of the 21st century.
Sure, you could throw that in there if you wanted to.
Also the show Roswell.
Oh, yeah, that too. All these things were going on around the same time. So there was a lot of interest and speculation about this. And so it definitely was something that was in So Weird's wheelhouse. So Weird's wheelhouse. Yeah, I think I said that right. But what's interesting is not too much of this episode actually takes place in Roswell.
No. The intro is pretty interesting. It's different from all the others because there's no narration by Fee. It's just a black and white type of footage of this incident that happened with someone working at the Air Force, and he has the wreckage in a box, and he's showing his son, and it's glowing. And then he gets a phone call from his, someone higher up saying, whatever he saw, can't talk about it and all that.
Yeah, I actually like that opening a lot. It's almost spooky.
I like it.
It is. It's one of my favorite openings, and one of the reasons why is because watching it as a kid, I was convinced it was real. And the black and white had something to do with it. If it was in black and white, I thought it must be real.
This must be documentary footage.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I never really noticed that you could actually hear the voices at the end of it that Andrew hears.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and we've mentioned before how this was a pretty low-budget show in a lot of ways, and they clearly could not afford to shoot any footage on a military base or any sets resembling a military base. They couldn't do a hangar full of alien spaceships, so they found an actually fairly clever way around that by focusing the episode not so much on Roswell and the military base and anything like that, and focusing more on somebody whose life was affected by this incident, which is our supporting character, Andrew, a homeless person who definitely appears to have some sort of mental disability, perhaps some sort of, I guess you would call him neurodivergent in modern words. And basically the Phillips family kind of feels sorry for this guy and takes them, he wants to visit his sister in Roswell, and they're passing through, or Albuquerque, in Albuquerque, and they're passing through, and they decide to take this man on the bus to Albuquerque so he can visit his sister. And of course, Fiona stumbles upon a mystery along the way and discovers the connection this person has to the famous Roswell incident in the 50s. And that's the plot.
The end.
Thanks, everyone.
Thanks for listening. See you next week. And I think we've mentioned before, the only person in the family who really objects to taking this Andrew person onto the bus with him is Jack. And everybody else is kind of cool with it. And I don't know, how do we feel about that? How do we feel about Molly allowing a clearly mentally ill homeless person on a bus around her 12-year-old daughter? Or are we all okay with that? Was that like a good decision on her behalf?
Well, she was reluctant at first. It was Fee who talked her into it with the line like, "Oh, come on, we've got these big, strong men to protect us," referring to Jack and Carrie. And I always thought it was a really good thing of them to do, in kind of the Disney Channel family-friendly vibe where oh, everybody's really good at heart. Kind of going along with that naive type of thinking. But I liked it.
Yeah. But it through modernizing kind of think, well, maybe, probably not something you should do in real life. I'm all for helping the disadvantaged, but maybe don't do that.
Yeah, there are organizations that could probably have helped him better than just taking him on your bus.
Take him on a little road trip. What do we all think of the character of Andrew?
Well, I am not. I guess, I work with people with, mental illness and intellectual disabilities and developmental disabilities on a daily basis. So I don't want to soapbox or anything, but basically, since I've started working with these individuals, I just watching, any portrayal of a person with intellectual disabilities, it makes me cringe a lot of the times. So
yeah. The neurologically disadvantaged are not portrayed well most of the time in media.
Yeah, and I feel like what they did here, it didn't do the population that I work with any favors, I guess, just because in the story we're, ultimately meant to pity this man, I feel like. He doesn't have a lot of development, obviously. And so, because it's just a 30-minute episode, I understand that. But I don't know. I guess I can't watch this episode without cringing now, to be honest with you.
Yeah, it's not too bad, I think. I've seen much worse. This bumps just... I mean, there's kind of a term, of the magical mentally ill person, the person who, has some sort of developmental disability, and this gives them, a bright-eyed, childish view on the world that lifts everybody's spirit, and that's a really dehumanizing and insulting portrayal, I think. And this episode, Andrew is almost literally magical.
Yeah.
Though it's not too terrible. I've seen much, much worse portrayals of situations like this.
I will agree with you on that. And ultimately, this is not something that I blame So Weird for. Like I said, it's a societal issue. It's a Hollywood issue. So
I've actually never really thought of Andrew as a person with disability. I've always thought of him as somebody elderly and confused, especially since he's been walking around his whole life, believing that he's hearing voices. More along the lines of somebody with schizophrenia who with it. So I kind of know what that's like to be with somebody dealing with that. But I always saw him more as elderly and confused than disabled.
Well, they kind of do both, because he's clearly hearing voices. He talks about how he's hearing voices, but at the same time, he refers to his father as, daddy. He has a very simple, childlike way of referring to people that I think hints at or points at some sort of, he's meant to be developmentally
delayed.
Yes. Trying not to step on any toes this week by picking my language very carefully.
No, it's okay. Yeah.
What do you guys think of that scene towards the end where Carrie is trying to talk him back to coming to his sister's house?
Well, it's trying to be a tearjerker, and how much it works, I think, just depends totally on how I'm feeling at the time. The last time I watched this episode, I thought it was a bit mawkish, but since, I'm almost 30 now and everything makes me cry, that actually, kind of got to me this time.
Yeah, I like what he says about Clue when he's talking to Andrew, and he says that he has a younger brother, and if something ever happened to him, he'd feel terrible. I can't remember what it was. I thought that was kind of sweet.
Me too. That's one of my favorite lines from this episode.
Yeah, and I feel like they do a pretty good job of telling a complete story in a half an hour here. There aren't too many hanging plot points left with this one, except for the big one, which I'm sure we will talk about soon.
Yeah, the alien part of the episode, the really interesting scene was when they're taking Andrew back to his sister's. They're on the bus and Molly is sleeping and she starts dreaming, and she dreams of, well, first she sees Andrew's face. It's like it triggers her to dream of an alien hand I'm touching her hand, I'm assuming, and then the alien hand shows like a little hologram of Rick.
Yeah, that I actually like that little dream sequence. Kind of some light David Lynch seasoning over our so weird there, and yeah, and of course that builds to the conclusion of the episode where Fiona makes contact with the alien, sort of, kind of.
Well, the alien make contact with her.
Yeah, they experience some missing time, which I thought was a nice little touch there, and. Well, we see, obviously, I don't know what actor or stagehand was playing that alien hand there, but he got a lot to do in this episode. Yeah, and I guess should we go ahead and talk about, I'm sure we've mentioned it before, the alien myth arc, the whole episode, the whole series was building towards that would have been expounded on more in the legendary Unmade Season 3.
Yeah, it bothers me so much that we never got a follow-up. Because also something that we didn't mention was that Andrew was sort of hearing voices, and that the device that he had been holding, that he had taken out of the box all those years ago, were an alien translator. So as you spoke into it in English or whatever other language, it would speak your words back to you in an alien language. It bothers me so much that we never got to see that device put to use.
Yeah, we never find out what the whereabouts of it is.
Just at the end there, when the aliens visit her and the alien says she is almost ready.
Yeah,
I think it was going to be put to use in the plot arc. I can pull up the document. No one has it on hand.
The John Cooksey lost notes, the secret key to understanding all the stuff throughout season 2.
Yeah, there was going to be, I think, a 2-part alien, 2 alien episodes within the season 3 that was planned. And I think they were going to use the translator. Tad Raxel was going to plug it into the computer somehow.
A literal universal gateway.
Yeah.
Does the translator have a USB drive on it somewhere? And we just
I don't know. I think we'll just talk about this more when we get into the season 3 that could have been, because it's a little wordy and confusing.
Okay.
Reading these notes.
But I just have one question. Molly has that dream sequence and she sees Rick. Was Rick abducted by aliens at one point in his life? Was that ever answered?
No, it was supposed to be there was on every planet.
Right.
Rick was supposed to be the one to save Earth, and then it fell to Faye, going to help her discover the truth about her father, if I'm remembering correctly.
All right, I knew it was something like that. I do remember that bit about there being a sort of a alien equivalent to Fiona on the alien world, which is one of the tidbits from the Unmade Season 3 that I'm not a super huge fan of, because I just generally am not a fan of Chosen One story arcs.
Yeah.
But wow, that's crazy.
I think it's interesting that they had Molly have that dream instead of Fee.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, what does that mean?
And also connecting to that, I don't know if that makes Molly want to believe all this Roswell stuff when she and Fee have the books and they're talking about it, and Molly's like, "Oh, you never know."
Well, on one hand, I really like that scene because I like to see everybody bonding with Fiona over weird stuff for once. On the other hand, I wish they had given Jack's skepticism a little more room. I mean, I know the kind of show this is. They're not really going to give us a skeptical reading of what happened in Roswell. But, if you do the reading, there is actually a perfectly logical explanation for every weird thing people report in connection with Roswell. There's a wonderful skeptoid. There's a wonderful podcast called Skeptoid that explains it all. Look that up. Yeah, but it is sort of interesting that for once everybody is kind of with Fiona on this one, except for Jack, of course.
And going back to that dream, I think it also ties in of Molly being able to sense things before they happen, going into her witch ancestry. That would have been followed up with and developed more in season 3.
Yeah, I mean, I can only assume that's what that means. Yeah, so lots of crazy mythology stuff in this episode and some decent continuity bits. Obviously Rick is mentioned in the first scene. I think Fiona says she has a picture of her dad in her wallet, which is cute. And then the end of the episode, Jack is emailing Gabe again. So some nice little callback to previous episodes there.
Oh, and the people that wrote this episode was Andy Bushell, I think, and Jim Prater. And they also wrote the Listen episode.
And according to IMDb, they also wrote Lost, apparently.
Yeah. So interesting they wrote one of the other Alien episodes.
Yeah, and the episode was directed by Rick Stevenson, who did Memory as well as Troll. So we also have another one of the Alien episodes there.
And in Listen, at the end of the episodes, the aliens, they say something, which is listen. And then at the end of this one is when they say their "she is almost ready" line.
Yeah, it's all this building up for something we never get to see the resolution for.
I know, it's so frustrating. It still bugs me about in Listen that feed tells us that, oh, they want us to listen to them. So it's like, okay, we're listening so weird, and then we never get a resolution of the story arc.
Well, like so many things with this show, it's frustrating. And I gotta say, like, of the myth arcs, I've talked about this before, I really like alien and UFO stuff as kind of a idea. I enjoy reading about that stuff. I don't take any of it really seriously, but it's fun. But in So Weird, I've always kind of considered it my least favorite of the ongoing story arcs because it's just seems to be the one that they kind of was making up as they went along the most.
They have a UFO in their intro that's not in any of the episodes.
That's true.
Just pointing that out.
That along with the running ghost lady, those are the two weird little bits in the opening credits that don't amount to anything. Some good Jack and Carrie moments in this episode.
I love the scene of them playing the video games in the hotel room, and they didn't realize that they'd been playing for 4 hours. I love
that scene.
Me too.
Yeah, it's a cute little bit of comic relief, though. Once again, I'm not entirely sure the people writing the show understood how video games work, but I do love that bit of music they play during the montage. It's got kind of a boozy saxophone on it and sort of a weird synth thing.
90s detective vibe type of music.
Yeah, it totally sounds like stock music from like a 90s cop show, and I love it. And they play it again over the end credits. That was nice. In fact, you should see if you can isolate that and have that be the outro music, Kathy.
Speaking of music, I don't know if we mentioned this earlier, but you can hear the strange geometry music in this episode.
Can you?
Yeah, they have the dream sequence.
Mm.
Oh, really?
Yep. Or maybe it's at the end. It could be both. Maybe at the end. A little da-da-da-da, that noise.
Is that exactly how it goes?
Yes. Exactly.
Yeah, so, overall, I enjoy this one. It's not a fave or anything, and there are some things about it that are a little frustrating. Like, I said earlier, Jack is the only one who's skeptical of the whole Roswell incident's place in pop culture, and yet at the end of the episode, he's the one who basically sees a flying saucer, experiences missing time, never mentions this at all. Once again, Jack's arbitrary skepticism.
It was just a super bright light, Some logical explanation there.
Super bright light that made him lose a half an hour, yeah. But is everybody how does everybody else generally feel about this one? I mean, like I said, I like it, but it's not a favorite or anything. But it's a decent So Weird episode.
I wonder why the So Weird writers decided to take the Roswell episode. Like, why did they decide to have it be about Andrew, who has an illness, instead of some other route that they could have taken? It seems like very, like, kids, would they like the episode? Would they really understand it much? I don't know.
It's a good question.
But I do like Roswell and the alien arc, so it's not in my top 5, but it's up there.
I mean, just last episode we were talking about how this is a show that had a weird, vaguely menacingly sexual Fishman episode in it. So really, So Weird was just doing all sorts of weird shit. Everything was just going over the 7-year-olds' heads. Emily?
What? Our general thoughts?
Yeah, sure. Do you like this episode?
Well, I feel like this was an episode I liked maybe a few years ago, and now it's just, I don't really enjoy watching it. I think one of the things I kind of find a little hard to believe is the fact that Andrew had this box with him. I mean, he would kind of talk to it, right? And he said he was hearing voices. And I'm sure he was very protective of it because obviously his dad was like, about this, blah, blah, blah. But his sister never got that box from him and like looked into it in any way.
Yeah, or all the doctors that saw him. Because Fee figured it out really quickly.
Yeah, it takes 5 minutes. It takes Fee 5 minutes to figure out something people have been wondering about for 40, 50 years at this point. So.
Yeah, well, that's where suspension of disbelief comes in.
Yep.
I mean, I do like that it's a translator, though. I thought that was kind of cool.
And they do mention that Andrew's been in and out of mental health facilities for a long time. So, yeah, it probably should have come up at some point. And I do want to mention that actor playing Andrew, that's Tom Heaton, who is a bit part character actor who's been working since the 60s. He's been in a lot of stuff. Guess Who's Coming to Dinner, the original April Fool's Day, The Boy Who Could Fly, The Fly 2, the original It TV series, all sorts of stuff. Lots of television, Highlander, The New Addams Family, The Outer Limits, stuff like that. Still working, I think.
I think he was in an episode of The X-Files, too, which is where I recognized him. He had a bit role in that, too.
Yeah, that's mostly what he's done. Yes, he was on 2 episodes of The X-Files, Shadows and War of the Coprophages.
What do you think, Kat?
I like this one. It's not one of my favorites, but I do think it's probably my top Alien episode, just because I really love the history behind Roswell, and I love that the opening feels like a historical segment.
Yeah, I like that too, though. I kind of agree with, I think it was Kathy who said that I would have liked to have gotten a little bit more of Roswell stuff, but at the same time, I also like that they took a different route. They didn't do the typical kind of government cover-up conspiracy thing. I mean, a little bit, but they sort of do their kind of a smaller scale, more personal take on it, which I thought was an interesting idea.
Yeah. It would have been hard to act like this episode was set in Roswell anyway, because Roswell's in the desert. So I've actually driven through Roswell before.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah, we were just driving through, and I was young, so I didn't have any say in what we got to do or anything. But all I remember is that the Walmart had aliens on the windows. Like, yeah, that's
Yeah,
it.
I think it's like a small town, and everything is alien.
Yeah, I've never been. I really want to go. I want to go to Roswell, and I also want to drive, down the alien highway and visit the little alien and the black mailbox and all that. Because as a kid in the 90s, I was like Fiona. I was always reading about this stuff. So I would really like to visit it, even though nowadays I know that, it's all pretty much nonsense, but I would still like to see that stuff. So anything else we want to talk about concerning this episode? Are we all done with this one?
Just one other small thing I noticed was that Fee mentioned a Grandpa Will, which I think is the first reference we've ever had to him. He was actually Rick's dad, which I thought was cool. He's out there somewhere.
Somebody put together the Phillips family tree at some point, the Fiona's family tree.
Yeah, it was actually in the John Cook's the FAQ. He said, Will is, I still have the FAQ up from earlier. Will is reclusive and private and lives in Florida.
Which is a nice way of saying it's unimportant and we're never going to talk about it. So we want to give ratings on this one?
Sure.
Okay, I would probably give it a 7. Right in the middle for me.
Yeah, I'll give it a 7 too.
Me 3.
I'll just give this 1 thumbs down.
Nearly unanimous, and then Emily just has to screw it all up. You're such a contrarian.
Sorry, guys. It's not that bad, but I don't enjoy it anymore.
So we've been away for a while. Do we have any feedback or anything else we want to talk about?
Yes, we have a lot of feedback.
Oh boy. Get your bingo pieces ready.
This is where, our podcast is actually like maybe 25 minutes and then the other 20, 30 minutes is feedback. Our last episode that we posted was Fathom. So for that one on Twitter from Kelly, She said, "Come on, guys. Fathom is not one of the worst episodes of the first 2 seasons. As you mentioned, there's Avatar and cringe Shelter."
Okay.
Well, that's her opinion, and she's welcome to it. And Shelter is coming up, so I guess we'll be talking about that soon.
Yeah. I don't like Shelter either, but it doesn't make me feel like ill watching it, which is how Fathom makes me feel at times. So that's why I think Fathom's the worst.
I suspect we may have a lot of feedback along that lines.
We do have Fathom feedback. So, continuing on our forum, this is from Kayla. I think that's how you say it. She said, "I actually like Fathom. Sure, it's flawed as hell. Lau's creepy behavior and Molly's seeming lack of agency, the lack of feed, the story's very rushed, etc. But as a merfolk fanatic, I really appreciate the twist of having a seductive merman for a change instead of the usual sexy siren-like mermaid. We can always use more mermen."
Ooh, merfolk fanatic. That's cool.
The Merman Coalition is letting their voice be known.
I salute you, merman fan.
I hope you saw The Shape of Water.
I haven't seen it yet. No, I really
haven't
want to see
either because it hasn't come to my theater.
No, same.
Guys, I haven't seen it either, but I just would have expected you all to go by now.
Well,
I
it's
would've.
playing. It's playing at a theater about 90 minutes away from me, and I've been debating whether or not I want to drive that far just for a movie. I probably am going to.
I heard it's really good.
Yeah,
And
same.
the romantic relationship is really good as well.
Yeah, I'm very excited to see the film, and that has nothing to do with our feedback there. But I'm assuming if this person is a merman fanatic, they will be excited for that movie as well.
Yeah. Okay. And then from the Boss Applesauce, they said, honestly, Fee probably needs enough therapy after some of her experiences without adding directly seeing her mom be abused in one way or the other to the list. It's better having Jack be the hero for this episode, in my honest opinion.
Okay, I agree.
I don't know. Did we say something about that?
I don't know. I think we just said that Fee wasn't in or she didn't have a big role.
Oh, I think we
My
kind
plot, remember?
So on YouTube, from Finding Buglantis, they said that was a ... weird episode.
Oh boy. Thank you. Try the veal. Tip your waitress.
And then from Melissa, she said, "I need to rewatch the opening montage of this episode now. LMAO. I agree that this is a terrible episode. I don't think it's the absolute worst, but it definitely ranks in my bottom 5. As for the hypnotic powers Lau has over Molly, it specifically reminds me of how vampires compel humans in the Vampire Diaries universe. If no one has seen that, basically the vampire makes eye contact and tells the human what to do, how to feel. The person being compelled never knows they were compelled unless they die and become a vampire, or unless the vampire who compelled them is killed."
Any fans of that show here?
No, I haven't seen it.
Nope, me neither.
Okay, and this is from Winter's Angel 6302. "I personally do not like this episode, and the only reason I actually pay any attention to it is because I love Mackenzie, and Molly is actually my favorite character on So Weird, following closely by Fee. I've never liked this episode because Lau was always so creepy, and I hated that he basically cast a hypnotic spell on Molly because she definitely was not herself."
Seems to be in agreement with us on that one, yeah.
This is from the GSTV reviewer. "Just rewatched that episode. It was painfully obvious he manipulated her, yet Lau never got his comeuppance.
Comeuppance, yeah.
If I were Molly, I would have rescued Jack and given him CPR right away. The fact she gave Lau the benefit of the doubt at the end feels strange."
Yeah, just the weirdest scene in the whole show, in my opinion.
And from Peelin the Blue Sky, they said, "I am so happy to have found this podcast. I remember being in 5th grade waiting for new episodes to air. I believe they aired on Mondays. Yay for my random memory. I've always been a serious, intense person, and I really appreciate and connect to the overall demeanor of the series. The characters have so much depth, and I respect their strong family bond. Fee was always my hero, and I love how she stays true to herself. So Weird will always be truly valued to me and will remain as one of my top favorite TV shows. I also loved how you mentioned Are You Afraid of the Dark and Hey Arnold during this episode, which are another two of my favorites. As far as this episode, I can actually remember watching it with my parents back in the day, and they thought Lau was a creeper too. Thanks so much for these episodes, and I look forward to them.
Oh, yeah, they're so weird fan.
Yeah, well, thank you so much for the feedback. And I have two questions. First off, is her username a U2 reference? Is that like a riff on Bullet the Blue Sky? And secondly, can anybody collaborate with what night of the week So Weird aired on? Because I don't.
I'm pretty sure it was
Okay.
Mondays.
Yeah, there are promos, and I think most of the time it says Mondays in the promos.
Okay.
Yeah, thank you. I hope you like this episode as well. Okay, I think I got all the Fathom stuff out. Okay,
We're
this
all
one's
so eager to
for-
talk about that episode. You know?
This one on our forum is from Questions, and it is for the episode Troll. They said, I've fallen so behind listening to these podcasts, but I just listened to this one. I grew up in Minnesota, so I've always loved Troll. From experience, the weirdly named dishes Ned orders are lutefisk. You might as well just drink straight up lie.
Okay.
Kotlami dill sauce. I can't say any of these. Boiled lamb in a dill sauce. Ragsisbrod. Basically a nice rye bread and gravid lax, usually pronounced gravlax. It's a salt curd salmon.
Well, that doesn't sound that bad.
And I'm not saying I'm great at saying these names, but Ned's Swedish pronunciation ain't so hot. Glad to know I'm not alone on wanting the rest of Molly's story about her and Rick ordering food. And I still quote Astrid's line, "Something's on the boil." I think I said that right. And no one ever has any idea what I'm talking about. Good times.
Well, that is some excellent feedback there. Thank you so much.
Yeah, I've started saying my stars and garters sometimes, which I know isn't, exclusive to this show, but definitely I say it because of this show.
And this one is from Gino Cuddy on the Banshee episode. They said, just watch this one. Where is Kara's Emmy? A criminal injustice has been done. This episode touched me as I lost my father and grandfather when I was 6 back in 2002. Hits close to home. When Fee screams at the Banshee at the end, I was right there with her. Eerily enough, I'm half Irish. I'm also of Italian and Scandinavian descent, if that matters. Great episode. I put this one over Rebecca. I know that will cause controversy, but this one just affected me more. By the way, would love to interview you guys sometime on my show. Please let me know if you're interested. Thanks and stay weird.
Sure, I love to talk about myself.
On Facebook from Andrea, she said, great review. Personally, I agree with the other fans who say they liked Fathom. You are right, there are definitely strong parallels between this episode and Siren, and I think Molly was definitely supernaturally enchanted by Lau in a similar way that Carrie was by Callie. Did you notice that when Jack reads up on merfolk, it says on the computer, it said that few humans can resist the spell of their merfolk, which is powerful and overwhelming. I think that, coupled with Molly's own longings, is what drew her to Lau, and I didn't get the feeling that he was evil, just lonely, like Molly. He probably came on strong because he had so little time before he had to return to the ocean. Do any of you realize that the song Origami does a great job of foreshadowing the inevitable doom of the Molly-Lau relationship? Of course, it's a 20-minute show and it needs to continue, so Molly's not going to go off into the ocean with him, but if we had no way of knowing better, we could rely on the song. When Molly says the secret to love is not origami, ain't gonna fold myself, just gonna behold myself. That hints, for the purposes of this particular episode, that she will not morph and change herself to be a merwoman and live out her life with Lau. She will continue to hold herself as a career rock star and mother that she is, and she will move forward with that life. No one should have to change who they are to receive and keep someone's love.
Hell yeah.
Wow, that's a really deep reading of that.
Yeah, it was a really good analysis.
Yeah, and of course, always thank you so much for the continued support, Andrea.
Yeah. I just would disagree with saying that he wasn't evil, just lonely. No.
Well, our thoughts on Fathom, I think, are well known at this point.
Yeah.
And I think that is all the feedback.
All
and if
right.
I didn't get yours, I'm sorry.
Well, you can always leave us a comment and we'll hopefully get to it next time. So, anything else you want to talk about while we were gone over the holidays?
I went on vacation to Disney World.
Oh, yeah.
And yeah, I wore my So Weird shirt, and I got one comment on it by a cast member, which means someone who works at Disney. They said they loved it, so that was pretty exciting. Cast member of the Expedition Everest ride, I'm giving you a shout out. You were awesome.
So when you say cast member, were they like in character or anything, or was it just like a regular employee type person?
They all wear outfits, but yeah, it was just he put people in their lanes, or what I mean, their rows for the ride.
Okay. So
yeah.
It wasn't like somebody dressed as Aladdin or something was shouting out show. So weird.
No, they're all just called cast members.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All the employees.
Well, that's cool. Do we want to talk about the Disney buying Fox, 20th Century Fox? We want to mention that at all? The upcoming corporate oligarchy we'll soon all be living under? No? Okay.
You want?
I mean, you guys don't see that interest, so we won't.
Well, no, it's just too much for me to take in. I think, I don't even realize what exactly they have the rights to now, since they bought Fox. But I just realized the other day that Buffy was actually now owned by Disney. And
well, I've read conflicting reports about whether or not that the television stuff was included as part of this deal. And when it comes to something like Buffy, that might actually be owned by, more so by the production company. I have no idea, though. But yeah, this is obviously a huge deal. And, somebody made a list of, all the, this was in jest, obviously, all the characters that will be joining in the Avengers now, the Fantastic Four, Wolverine, Edward Scissorhands, Mrs. Doubtfire, the aliens, Planet of the Apes, all these things. I don't know. It's a kind of a terrifying deal, I think, personally. I just hate the idea that we're living in a time now where corporations have so much money that they can just buy their competition. I feel like that's kind of bad overall for the film industry, and that's just what I'll say about that. But totally excited for the Fantastic Four to show up in the Marvel Cinematic Universe. I'm not going to say that isn't exciting, but because they definitely that's a franchise that needs to be rebooted. But otherwise, I'm not too keen on this. But I think I don't think anybody else has got anything else to say about that. So
I wonder what this would mean for the Disney streaming service, if it would have any impact on it now that they own all this other stuff.
I have, we still have so little information on that Disney streaming thing. And now I've heard rumors that Disney may actually just turn, instead of pursuing their own thing, they just may turn Hulu into like a Disney, because apparently Disney has some sort of stake in Hulu. I have no idea.
Gosh. It's wild. It's wild.
We are living in a strange new era, that's for sure.
Yeah, I saw a joke, I think it was on Twitter, saying how soon enough we're not going to be calling movies anymore. We're going to be calling them Disneys.
Yeah, well, that's what happened in the not the film, but the book Cloud Atlas. In the far future, all movies are just called Disneys. So, anywho, that is totally off topic. But as always,
something I wanted to say. For the listeners that keep up with our episodes, we had said that this next episode that we were going to put out was supposed to be our Q&A with Allie Marie Matheson. But we weren't able to do that. Some complications rose up. So that's going to be put on hold.
Hopefully will still happen at some point.
Yeah, and I'm positive that we'll have other Q&As with other people from the cast and crew. Hopefully this year. And it's January, so that can be whenever.
Yeah, hopefully we'll have something like that coming soon. And, an Allie Marie interview is still a possibility. We'll just say that.
Yeah.
Okay, anything else we want to talk about?
I think that's it.
Okay, all right. Well, in that case, this has been the So Weird Podcast. I'm Zach.
I'm Kathy.
I'm Emily.
And I'm Kat.
And keep the faith, and keep listening, and keep bugging Disney.
Always bug Disney.
Bye.